Have you ever felt like a stranger in your own life? Like no place on earth truly understands you? I have. And if you've ever walked through that kind of loneliness, then you've likely asked the questions all humans eventually do. The ones that tug at our soul late at night. Questions like, who is God? Not just in theory, but really, who is He? Is He just a judge in the sky? Is He righteous, kind, distant, close? Or maybe you've dared to wonder, if God is real, why does He feel so silent in my pain? These aren't just questions of religion. They're the questions of the human heart. And in the story of Moses, we find a man who dared to ask them, and who found the answer in a God far more personal than he ever imagined. These questions: who is God? Can I trust Him? Does He see me? They aren't new. They echo through the ancient wilderness, through the cries of an enslaved people, through the heart of one man who never asked to become a hero. The story of Moses revolves around these very questions. Because Moses wasn't a bold prophet from the start, he was a man who doubted not just God, but himself. A stammering mouthpiece who begged not to speak. A priest reluctant to stand at any altar because his past felt too stained. A reluctant ruler trembling at the weight of a nation's future. And yet, God chose him anyway. This is the story of that man, Moses, a prophet, a deliverer, a man who walked with God. But more than that, this is a story about what happens when God calls the unqualified and does the impossible through them. To truly understand the story of Moses, you have to go back, way back, to a promise whispered under a starlit sky in the book of Genesis. God told Abram, "Your descendants will be strangers in a land not their own, enslaved for 400 years. And just as He said, it came to pass. Generations later, the Israelites, once honored guests in Egypt, had multiplied into the thousands. Their growing presence stirred fear in the heart of a new Pharaoh, a king who knew nothing of Joseph nor cared for his people. Suspicion turned to hatred. Hatred curdled into something darker, a deep, venomous anti-Semitism that poisoned the land. The Israelites were stripped of freedom and dignity. They were forced to raise monuments to gods they did not serve, temples to war, towers of blood. They labored under whips, building an empire with hands that bore no reward, only bruises. But the more Pharaoh crushed them, the more they multiplied, and so he turned to unthinkable horror, genocide. Every Hebrew baby boy thrown into the Nile, drowned, silenced. It was in the shadow of this darkness, under the threat of death, that a baby boy was born. His name would echo through history. Moses entered the world in a storm of chaos around 1390 BC, during the iron-fisted reign of Pharaoh Seti I. His birth was not for safety or celebration, but into shadows and danger. He was born into a fractured legacy, a family line riddled with pain, imperfection, and obscurity. Exodus 6 makes that clear. Moses did not come from royalty. He came from a people beaten down, stripped of power, clinging to a distant promise. His mother, desperate and brave, hid her newborn son as long as she could. But there comes a day when a baby's cry grows too loud for the silence of fear. With trembling hands, she placed him in a basket woven from reeds and sealed with pitch, entrusting him to the very river meant to be his grave. Down the Nile he drifted, past reeds, crocodiles, and destiny, and by what can only be called divine choreography, he landed near the royal grounds, likely in Tanis, where Pharaoh's daughter had come for a ritual. There, amid the rituals of gods who knew not Yahweh, the princess of Egypt heard a baby's cry. She turned, she saw, she was moved. She drew him from the water and named him Moses. In Hebrew, it means drawn out. In Egyptian, it's a mere suffix, born of, like Ramez, born of Ra. But Moses, he was born of no one, drawn from nowhere, a child with no name, no people, no homeland, only a basket and a destiny. Little did anyone know the boy plucked from the river would one day split seas. And here's where the story deepens. Moses doesn't just survive. He becomes a symbol, an image of the very people he came from, the Israelites, drawn from nothingness, drawn through water, and placed into a house that was never theirs. Like Israel, Moses is set adrift in helplessness, only to be lifted by unseen hands into the heart of power. Raised in Pharaoh's palace, Moses walks the marble halls of the very kingdom that enslaved his people. He learns the language of kings, the strategies of war, the secrets of Egypt's gods. He reads their scrolls. He hears the whispers of conquest. He watches as Egypt wages bloody campaigns against the Hittites in the north. Brutal, merciless, godless. And though he's dressed in silk and trained in privilege, Moses doesn't quite fit. He knows deep down that he does not belong. He is an outsider in royal robes, a Hebrew behind Egyptian eyes, a man of two worlds, fully accepted by neither, a foreigner to the very soil he walks on, yet bound to a destiny far beyond these palace walls. Moses is not just growing up in Egypt. He is becoming the mirror of a nation, a people who will one day be drawn out again, not by river current, but by the mighty hand of God. 40 long years pass. Moses, now a man, walks through Egypt with eyes wide open, eyes that see the truth he can no longer unsee. He watches his people, the Hebrews, groan under the weight of brutal labor, their backs bent under injustice, and something in him snaps. One day, he sees it. An Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave, one of his people. Moses looks around, left, right, the street silent, the sun hot. No one is watching. He steps forward, one blow, the Egyptian falls, lifeless. Moses buries the body in the sand, hoping the desert will keep his secret. But secrets don't stay buried in the desert. The next day, he finds two Hebrews fighting. He steps in, trying to make peace. "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" But the response cuts deeper than any whip. "Who made you our ruler and judge? You're going to kill me like you killed that Egyptian?" Just like that, Moses knows he's been found out, and so has Pharaoh. When word reaches the throne, a bounty is placed on Moses' head, and Moses, the prince of Egypt, trained in courts and strategy, runs. He flees across scorching sands, miles from everything he's ever known, into the wilderness of Midian. By the time he arrives, he collapses near a well, hungry, tired, alone. He has nothing, no title, no people, no plan, just sand in his sandals and guilt in his heart. But then, dust kicks up in the distance. A group of women approach the well, shepherdesses coming to water their flocks, unaware that the next chapter of Moses' life and theirs is about to begin. The sun beats down on the Midianite plains. Moses rests by the well, still catching his breath, when suddenly, Trouble kicks up dust in the distance. A band of rogue shepherds charge in, rough men with no respect for custom or kindness. They shove past a group of young women, shepherdesses who've come to draw water, chasing them away like they were nothing. But Moses, though a stranger and worn from travel, doesn't stand by. He rises, not as a prince, not as a soldier, but as a man who can't ignore injustice. He drives the shepherds off, defends the women, and then he waters their flocks himself. The women run home with wide eyes and wild stories. A man saved us. An Egyptian, no, a Hebrew. And he helped us water the flocks. Their father, Jethro, also called Ruel, hears the tale and invites this mysterious wanderer into his home. And there in that quiet, nomadic village under the desert sky, Moses finds something he never expected: rest. Time passes. Moses marries Zipporah, one of the women he rescued. She gives birth to a son named Gershom, whose name means, "I have been a foreigner in a foreign land." It fits Moses perfectly. A man caught between worlds, Hebrew by birth, Egyptian by upbringing, Midianite by marriage. Still searching for home, but far away back in Egypt, the fire of suffering burns hotter. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey through the early life of Moses, a man born in chaos, raised in a palace, and now called by fire. Did something in this story speak to you? Was there a moment that opened your eyes or stirred your heart? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear what stood out to you. And don't forget, this is just the beginning. In the next episode, we follow Moses back into the lion's den, back to Egypt, where signs, wonders, and divine confrontation will shake the empire of Pharaoh to its core. So, if you haven't already, subscribe to Bible Legacy Unfolded and tap that notification bell so you won't miss a moment of what's to come. The legacy is still unfolding. God bless you.